Welcome to Chop Suey Press Podcast, where you get to hear the free serialized audiobooks of author Matthew Gilman. To learn more about the author, you can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of his books are available in print and ebook format through Amazon. If you enjoy it, be sure to come back next week for another installment. New episodes will be available every Friday. This episode of Chop Suey is brought to you by Cellar Door Antiques. Do you have a hard time with computers? Are you afraid the NSA will read your manifesto before it's finished? Maybe a typewriter is what you're looking for. Cellar Door Antiques has a wide range of portable typewriters available on Etsy. If you are interested in Art Deco 1920 style or modern Smith Corona, they are available for purchase and fully functional for your writing projects. Check out Cellar Door Antiques today. And now, on to our show. Tibbs and Gonzo, Schrodinger's cat. A cemetery is exactly where one expects to find a dead body. This day is different since the body found isn't supposed to be dead. Mount Everest is one of the largest cemeteries in Pedigree City, holding the corpses of tens of thousands of deceased cats and dogs, each to their own designated sections, of course. The body was discovered by a bloodhound who was out for a walk early that morning. "I smelled it the moment I walked by," he states to the officer that called it in. He isn't a suspect. At his age, I'm surprised he is able to make the journey through the cemetery. The cane spoke of hip problems from his age. "I might be old, but my nose is still young." The old man appears to be proud of his find, no matter how gruesome the body. "I was a search and rescue dog back in the day." "You didn't do much to rescue this poor sap," Gonzo adds. He flicks his cigarette and looks at the body dug up in the hole. The cemetery crew was called out to excavate the body once it was confirmed there wasn't somebody buried in that spot for over 15 years. Occasionally there are couples who buy plots side by side, and then there are the cheap bastards who put one on top of the other. The Jack Russell brought out a chart showing his scheduled burials and where they were all over the cemetery. I never realized how much work went into taking care of a corpse. The lid to the coffin is brought up from the dirt, and Gonzo waves me over. "Tibbs, you have to see this." There were claw marks on the inside of the lid. "Poor bastard was buried alive," I say, looking at the scratches. "Didn't have a chance," Gonzo says, taking a drag from his cigarette. "The lid was nailed on. 4 feet of dirt on top." "What's that, a ton of dirt?" He exhales a smoke while he speaks. "Any ID?" I ask, almost knowing the answer ahead of time. "None," Gonzo says. "What do we know?" I ask. "Young, thin, athletic, well-groomed." Gonzo can't find much else to say. "We'll know more when we get the body back out and examine it downtown." "Fine, call me then." Close my notebook and stuff it in my pocket. "This isn't the first," the old bloodhound says. "What's he talking about?" Gonzo says to the officer taking the report. "This body," the bloodhound says. "It's not the first I've smelled out here. There have been more." "Where?" I ask. The bloodhound takes us through the cemetery and points out various graves where he smelled fresh bodies in the past. "Did you report it?" I ask. "Of course," he says. "But nobody took me seriously until now. Get those graves excavated and let me know what you find." The crews get started and I go back to the car. Gonzo follows behind. I can tell he isn't happy with the new assignment. He's smoking more than normal. "Something on your mind?" I ask, watching the crews go out to work digging up the graves. "If I had to get rid of a body—" Gonzo doesn't finish the statement. "This isn't getting rid of a body, it's burying people alive." I take a cigarette from Gonzo and inhale my first drag in years. I cough and puff the tobacco after that. "Lightweight," Gonzo teases. "This one isn't going to end well." "Do they ever?" I ask. "It's not like finding a guy who brings back the dead. All we ever do is prevent more people from being murdered." "Isn't that a victory?" Gonzo asks. "Nobody being dead would be great." I flicked the half-smoked cigarette away and returned to the second grave that was dug up. "We have another!" the Jack Russell calls out. It is then I know this would be a long day. 6 bodies were taken to the morgue and put on ice. Some don't need it because of the age of the decay. What they have in common is the claw marks inside the lids of the coffins. The white cream doesn't do much to cover the scent of the bodies. I can tell Gonzo is having a hard time with the smell. "Brings back memories of Germany," Gonzo says, trying to hold back his vomit. "You gonna be okay?" I ask. I can do this myself if I need to. And have you missed something important? Not likely. The freshest body is the first that was dug up. The clothes are new and bought at a local Bears and Roebuck store. After removing the shirt, I noticed the emblem of a local school shaved into the fur. I looked closer at the arm and noticed it was for the football team at Wolverine University. Interesting, I say, pointing out the emblem to Gonzo. Something to go on, he replies. We can contact the school and see if anybody came up missing recently. Let's look at the rest and go from there. There isn't anything else to go on. There is one dog in the mix, poorly decomposed Chihuahua that might have been a victim of opportunity since the rest are cats. The rest are males and females of various ages and breeds. Nothing stands out except for the college reference. You know what's bothering me about all this? I ask. You mean besides the smell? Gonzo retorts. The bloodhound said that he called prior about other bodies. I looked at Gonzo and continued the question. Who took the call? I can find out. You do that, I say. I'll go to the school and ask around about our guy here. Sounds good. An hour later I am met by a member of the faculty. I've never been fond of owls and have trouble focusing on the case while we talk. Little Wing is of Native American heritage and moved his way up the ranks in the school through the Montgomery GI Bill after the war. He is head of the mythology department and also teaches comparative religion. I apologize, this is the best the school could bring out in such short notice, he says. It's not like we anticipate when murders will occur, I sympathize. Yes, it's unfortunate. Do you have any students who have been reported missing in the last week or so? The age of the body is a guess on my part. Figure any missing student would have been remembered. There was one, Little Wing replies. A physics student. Undergrad, if I am correct. Do you have a photo or description of the student, I ask? Of course. Go to the registration office and the student's information is handed over. The photo resembles the body that was found in the grave. I know this is a long shot, but have any other students disappeared in the last year? No, just this one, Little Wing answers. Buck, I reply with the name. Who? He replies. Yes, Buck. Little Wing is getting bored from the conversation. Odd name for a cat. Can I see a copy of Buck's class schedule, I ask. He spent most of his time with one teacher. Little Wing pulls the latest schedule from the file and hands it over. Professor Schrodinger is the head of the quantum physics department for the school. Quantum physics? The term is beyond my understanding. Yes, it's more of a speculative form of physics. Theories on how the world is held together. Sounds like they just make stuff up. Yes, it does sound that way. Little Wing has a puzzled look on his face. Maybe I didn't explain it well enough. The person you should be talking to about this is Schrodinger himself. I'll do that. The signs on campus are easy to follow, and I was in the physics building 20 minutes later. The building looks just like any other. The walls are covered with blackboards and a series of formulas that I will never understand. Walking around, it is difficult to find anybody to talk to. It isn't until I walk into a room where a class is taking place that anybody acknowledges me. In the front, a cat is discussing a formula on the board. I am instantly lost in the conversation. Consider the notion that the observer is unable to see the ball bouncing behind him. The professor draws a ball with lines showing motion. Since we know that reality depends on the observer to define the ball could theoretically exist in any position until it is seen. But if the observer hasn't seen the ball doesn't exist until that moment. The young woman states. Yes and no, Professor states. There is sound that proves the ball exists. It is the position of the ball that is in question until it is seen. The professor looks at me suddenly. Perhaps we could direct the question to our late arrival. Does the position of the ball exist before it is seen, or does the person in question need to see it before it can be determined? The question sounds absurd, so I give the most honest answer I could. I can't see a bullet when it's flying at me. When it hits me, there's no question whether or not it exists. It is at that moment the professor realizes that I was not one of his students. He stands, unable to speak for a second. I pull my badge and flash it for him to see. Yes, I see, the professor says. And on that note, let's be done for the day. Books close and the students leave the classroom. The student body is a mix of all kinds of species. Cats, dogs, birds, Even a few squirrels are in the blend. The professor appears to be waiting for me to come down and speak to him. He is an older cat, long-haired, and white coming out in the color of his fur. "Are you Professor Schrodinger?" I ask. "Indeed," he responds. "Did you have a student that went missing last week?" "Buck," he answers. "Yes, that was disappointing." "How so?" I ask. "He had a bright future ahead of him, and then he stopped showing up." "Any idea why?" "I assumed he met a female in heat and they ran off together. It happens all the time on campus." Buck was found dead this morning. The look in the professor's face isn't of surprise or shock. He acts like he already knew. "What was your relationship like with Buck?" "If you are insinuating that there is anything inappropriate, you are mistaken." "I didn't ask that." I knew this guy was going to be tough. "Was he on time? Did he get good grades? Did you spend time outside of school?" "He was always on time, my top student, and no, we never saw one another outside of school." "That's all I need to know." I close my book. "I hope you find whoever is responsible." Then something comes to mind. "Were you the one that reported Buck missing?" The professor pauses for a second. "Yes. He didn't show up for a meeting we had scheduled." He pauses again. "I went to the admissions office as soon as he didn't show." "You didn't wait for him to arrive late?" "He never did that." "What day did you have the meeting?" "Last Tuesday, 10 a.m. "Thank you." Upon leaving the classroom, I took my notebook out and wrote down the date and time of their scheduled meeting. From here, I needed to see the students' living quarters. I look at my notes and find the dorm number on the building called Draper Hall. Knocking on the door, a roommate answers. "Who are you?" an orange cat asks with the door cracked. I flash the badge and ask to come in. "You have a warrant?" "For a dead guy's dorm room?" I ask. The door opens. "He's dead?" the orange cat responds. "And a few others. Mind if I look around?" The orange cat stands aside and sits on the small twin bed. "His desk is over there." The orange cat points across the small room. "Do you know if he had a schedule book or something that he kept notes in?" "Buck was very organized, always taking notes," the orange cat says. "That black book over there." Open the book and find the page for last Tuesday. There's nothing in there about a meeting. "What is your name?" I ask. "Clarence," the orange cat replies. "How is Buck's relationship with Professor Schrodinger?" "Fine until 2 weeks ago," he says. "Things started to get weird around that time. Buck wasn't talking much about their research. One night he woke up screaming. Just before then he mumbled to himself, 'Schrodinger's cat, Schrodinger's cat,' over and over again. He told me to forget that I had heard anything." "Why would he say that?" I ask. "He is dead," Clarence says. "Maybe he didn't want me dead too." "You think it was Professor Schrodinger?" "I have to follow all leads," I state. "Did Buck have a girlfriend or people he hung out with?" "You've seen this cat in the biology department. Shiva, foreign student who teaches over at the fitness center. You could ask her if she heard anything." After looking over the desk and taking the scheduling book, I leave the dorm. My next stop is to talk to Shiva. On my way to the gym, I see Gonzo walking my way. "You talked to whoever took the call?" I ask. "Yeah." There's an odd smile on his face. "And?" "And I'm taking her out later tonight, depending on how things go." I haven't seen that look on Gonzo's face since high school. "You were supposed to get information, not try to wrap your tail around hers." "She said she was looking through the records and saw the other calls had not been followed up. She sent a hound out to check out the call and boom, there is your body." Gonzo has that stupid grin on his face. "She was just doing her job, unlike some people. What do you have on your end?" The student's name is Buck, quantum physics student who was reported missing last week by his professor. Things already aren't adding up. Teacher says Buck didn't show up for the meeting and reported the student missing right away. Buck's records show that there wasn't a meeting scheduled. "So we should grab the professor?" Gonzo asked. "It's all circumstantial at this point. Let's talk to Buck's girlfriend and see what she has to say." Inside the gym, a line of dogs run the track, and the cats are doing yoga in the classrooms. Some of the more active felines are in the gymnastics room doing flips and cartwheels. "Which one is our girl?" Gonzo asked. In the weight room stands a slender cat with a triangle face and jade green eyes. She's wearing a necklace with a jade-colored stone matching her eyes. Think I found her. Gonzo and I walk into the room where Shiva is instructing a dog on the leg press machine. Shiva? I ask. Yes, she responds. Who is asking? Detective Tibbs and Gonzo. I introduce us. Is this about Buck? She asks. Afraid so. We take her into a private room where she breaks down crying after we give her the bad news. When she recovered her composure, I continue with the questions. Did you know anything about nightmares he was having before he disappeared? I asked. Not about nightmares, but he was afraid of Professor Schrodinger. How so? Gonzo asked. He gave me something before he disappeared. What did he give you? I asked. Shiva looks around the gym with concern about being overheard. It was a paper the professor had written. Buck said it was crazy stuff, the type of thing that would end his career. But then it turned into something they didn't want to talk about. I think he discovered the professor was doing something illegal. What part of quantum physics could be illegal? I asked. Trying to prove a theory that you could only experiment on people? Do you have the paper? Yes. We leave the gym and go back to Shiva's dorm room. She pulls a few books off the shelf and reaches behind to a paper. The Duality of Existence? I read as the title. Do you mind if we take this? No, Shiva says. Please find out what happened to Buck. We leave the dorm room and go back to the car. What now? Gonzo asks. I'm thinking we should grab the professor before he disappears. No, I reply. Let's get a warrant so we don't have to let him go. I think he is the link behind those bodies, but we need proof. We drive to the station and file a request for a warrant. While we wait in the office for the judge to sign off on the warrant, Gonzo tries to read the paper. I think what we have here is a confession, Gonzo says. What do you mean? Listen to this. The moment the cat is in the box, there is a dual reality with the question of the cat's existence. Before the box is opened, there are two truths that one has to acknowledge. The cat is both alive and dead at the same time. It is not until the moment the box is opened that the status of the cat is defined as one or the other. He states what he is doing right here. You think he's trying to make the people immortal by burying them alive, I ask? In some weird way, that appears to be his logic. At that moment, the captain walks up to the desk. Your warrant is delayed. Why? We need to bust this guy before more people disappear. Judge is out of town on a hunting trip. He won't be back until tomorrow. You'll have to sit back and wait until then. The captain walks away and Gonzo tosses the paper on the desk. Another officer walks up behind Gonzo and taps her feet. Were you planning on standing me up? This must be the girl at the call center. She is pretty, the type of female I could see my brother going for, with colorful long hair. Body fills out the uniform in all the right places. No, I didn't forget, Gonzo replies, turning the chair around. Things got a little backed up, but as of right now, my schedule is wide open. Good, she says. You're taking me out to dinner. Nothing fancy, he says. I was thinking salmon. She winks. Gonzo waves us goodbye and I wave back. Don't get too crazy, I holler as they leave the room. I go home that night and sleep like a kitten. I don't have a care in the world. I figure tomorrow's another day and whatever I don't accomplish today will still be there tomorrow. The next morning, I meet Gonzo at the station. The search warrant isn't issued until noon and we go straight to the professor's home. He isn't there, so we delicately kick in the door to execute the warrant. Maybe delicate isn't the correct word. It isn't just Gonzo and I that were there on the scene when we go in. There must have been a dozen officers who wanted a peek at the man who would bury people alive. To their surprise, there didn't appear to be anything out of the norm. While the rest of the police officers go through the kitchen and living room, I venture into the bedroom. The bed is made, clean clothes hang in the closet, and color order from light to dark. It is insane how clean this guy is. There isn't even a stray sock under the bed. I open the top drawer of the dresser and look inside. At first, everything is normal. I reach under the socks and underwear and feel something metal. I know that people like to hide their guns in the sock drawer. Weird habit that people have. I prefer stuffing it between the mattress and box springs so I can grab it in the middle of the night. But that's just me. I pause in gripping around a gun, though. I pull out the metal object and see a green jade stone staring at me in the eyes. I recognize it right away. Gonzo! I holler into the house. He appears in the doorway with a look of concern. He has her. He took Shiva. The two of us rush out the house and drive to the college, pressing the pedal to the floor. We skip the office and go straight to the physics department. I don't bother to drive around the courtyard and plow over the lawn, forcing students to get off their asses and move out of the way. I honk the horn and grit my teeth. One of the students throws a book at the windshield and I hiss out the window at him. The Buick comes to a screeching stop and we rush into the building. Standing before the classroom of students is Professor Schrodinger. "What is the meaning of this?" Schrodinger says as we barge into the room. "You want to shoot him now?" Gonzo asks. "You're under arrest," I say, walking down the aisle and placing the cuffs on Schrodinger's wrist. "You're embarrassing me in front of my students," he says, looking at me. I pull Schrodinger out of the room and into the hallway where he trips and falls on the floor. "Is that the best you have?" I pull the necklace from my pocket and hang it in front of his face. "Where's Shiva?" I ask politely. This will be the last time I do so. "I don't know what you're talking about." Look over at Gonzo, who's already putting his leather gloves on. He hates getting blood on his furry knuckles when he's hitting someone. Gonzo motions his head over towards the back door, and we drag Schrodinger out with us. "You don't know what you're doing!" Schrodinger screams as we dump him on the pavement. "You can't do this! I have rights!" Gonzo throws his first punch. He waits for Schrodinger to collect himself before he speaks. "Shiva has rights. Shiva has a future. What Shiva doesn't have is time, which means you have none. Tell us where you put her before I toss your ass in a box and forget about you." Honestly, Gonzo is well composed for this. I figure he would be hitting the poor bastard some more. "You're killing her," Schrodinger answers. "What did you say?" Gonzo replies. I step between them. I figure the man is talking. It was best to hear his words regardless of how little sense they made. "Shiva!" Schrodinger spits some of the blood from his mouth. "You say she is dead or dying. Currently she is alive. She is also dead. Where she is, she will be alive forever. As long as the box is never opened, she will always be alive." Gonzo pushes me out of the way and grabs Schrodinger's foot. "You see this?" Gonzo points to Schrodinger's big toe. "Currently, your toe is attached to your foot." Gonzo pulls the revolver out and presses the barrel to his knuckle. The blast causes my ear to ring, and I press my paws against my ears. I didn't think he would do it, and now I'm regretting the doubt. Schrodinger squirms on the ground and hollers in pain. "Ah!" Gonzo drops the foot and lets the man wiggle around for a few seconds. "You have more toes. Test me. I dare you." "Is she in the cemetery?" I ask Schrodinger. His head nods and he cries. "Where? Tell me, where?" "Snickerdoodle." Schrodinger is referring to a headstone. "You stay here," I tell Gonzo. "Don't kill him." Gonzo says nothing as I run to the car. The Buick is still waiting for me with the door open. I shift the car into drive and haul ass over the courtyard again. The cemetery is 20 minutes away on a good day. I will reach it in 10 if I don't die on the way. The traffic isn't bad and I'm able to drive some people onto the edge using the horn and some tailgating. Pulling into the cemetery, I see the Jack Russell trimming some grass in the far edge of the property. I honk the horn and get his attention. "Detective," he says. "Snickerdoodle. Where is that grave?" The look on his face tells me he understands what I'm asking. He rushes to the maintenance building and pulls out the map of the grounds. "I know that name," he says, looking over the map. "Why can't I find it?" I look over the other papers on the wall. "What is this?" I ask. "The tombs and sarcophagus," he tells me. "That's it!" I follow him out of the building and across the property where a small building stands. On the side of the building are square marble plaques with names written on them. We look around and find Snickerdoodle, waist high and easy to get to. How the hell? I start to ask. But Jack Russell is already getting his keys out and opens the door to the interior of the building. We have a problem with grave robbers. Dogs with weird fetishes of chewing on bones. So we have the opening to the sarcophagus inside with the doors locked to prevent thieves. The door opens and we are inside. There's a lock on the door, and I push Jack Russell back as I pull my revolver. The lock doesn't survive the .38 blast, and the door swings open on the wall, revealing the coffin. We both reach in and pull the coffin out. The wooden box crashes to the floor with a loud thud. I pull the lid open and saw Shiva inside. Her eyes are closed. It doesn't appear to be breathing. No, I say, grabbing her shoulders and lifting her from the coffin. Come on! I give a soft pat to the side of her face and shake her until her eyes open. You're alive, I say, looking into her dazed green eyes. Her paw touches her head. Who dropped me? She says, gripping the back of her head. As if the gunshot wasn't bad enough. You know how loud that was in there? This was the moment it pays to be a cop. The ungrateful attitude towards a job well done. We have him. We have Schrodinger. The words pass over her head without a care in the world. I'm thirsty. Shiva starts to move on her own and sit up on the floor. You want me to call an ambulance, boss? Jack Russell asks. I nod towards him and he leaves the building. He said I would live forever, Shiva says. And for some reason, I believed him. Schrodinger is in less than one piece when he reaches the jail. Gonzo had taken out some more aggression on him as he waited to hear if Shiva was alive. It wasn't until a patrol car stopped by to pick up Schrodinger that he heard the news. By then, a few teeth were missing, and Schrodinger wasn't willing to mumble his insane thoughts anymore. The report read that he was resisting arrest while in custody. Considering the number of bodies linked to the psycho, nobody cared. Gonzo broke his hand during the confrontation and had to get a cast put on. Shaving the fur for the plaster revealed scars I never knew he had. You want to talk about it? I ask him while looking at the scars. Not really, Gonzo says. When the cast is set, we gather our trench coats and leave the hospital. Hey, Tibbs, Gonzo says before getting in his cab. Say hi to Coffee for me. Somehow, the son of a... Well, no, I can't say that about my brother. The bastard knew what I was up to. I feel this is his way of giving acceptance to my relationship. She might not be a paper-holding purebred, but she's mine. I get in the Buick, turn on the motor, and hit the gas towards the north side of town. Next week, we will have a new adventure featuring Tibbs and Gonzo. If you liked this week's episode, be sure to check out the book, Tibbs and Gonzo, available on Amazon in print and ebook format. Thank you for listening to the Chop Suey Press podcast. Be sure to come back next week. New episodes are available every Friday.